Thank you, Chairman McCall. I want to thank our witnesses for joining us today. I want to start by asking all of you the reporting requirements or reporting mechanisms that you all have in place for Russian capture of American equipment, the weapons, and do your agencies have a means of tracking those captured equipment?
So with regard to security assistance to Ukraine, when the weapons go in to the country, there are agreements as to how that's supposed to be tracked, and the Department of Defense has the responsibility to do this end-use monitoring we've talked about, or enhanced end-use monitoring, to ensure the accountability of the weaponry. What we do as OIGs is and as I've testified, it's a robust, ongoing series of work, and it's going to continue to be so because of the importance of the issue, to ensure that the Department of Defense is doing that work in compliance with applicable regulations, in doing it efficiently and effectively to make sure that there is that accountability for the weapons.
Can I hear the other agencies?
Thank you for your question. So the Department of State has a much smaller role in end-use monitoring than the Department of Defense, but we do have a small piece of that, particularly on the front of civilian security assistance and direct commercial sales. And so that is something that is the subject of our ongoing work. We are looking very carefully at how the department is doing its end-use monitoring under the circumstances, and are looking forward to publishing that work, which I think will highlight some important issues and hopefully offer some good recommendations as well.
Briefly, Ms. Angela?
USAID is not doing end-use monitoring.
I want you to know that one of the issue that I am following very closely with regard to Ukraine conflict is food security issue. Russia's bombing of ports and grains silos in Ukraine has worsened what was already a dire food security situation. So I'm really committed to ensuring that our food security assistance is getting to the people who need it and that there is no waste of abuse. So I want to ask your working relationship with those large UN agencies, especially those with World Food Bank and UNICEF. So can you explain how you coordinate with them on your oversight efforts, and what role do information sharing, those information sharing agreements play in that oversight that you conduct?
Sure. Thank you for that question. USAID is actively doing agriculture assistance in Ukraine right now, both on looking at the resilience of the Ukrainians in their agricultural system, and then also looking at the impact it's having on the rest of the globe and the food insecurity that you just described. And our office has two ongoing or planned audits of those two programs. With respect to the UN organizations, as I testified earlier, we just came back from Rome and met with the three primary agriculture UN agencies there, WFP, FAO, and IFAD. WFP being the largest of those. According to USAID, approximately a quarter of USAID's funding goes to the WFP. So that's a primary relationship that we have, one with the leadership at WFP, explaining what USAID's expectations are and us as the IG for them to report and disclose to us when they see allegations of fraud or misuse. And then also the relationship that we have with their oversight, their IG. We have a longstanding partnership with them where we meet monthly, we share our investigative reports. They have a requirement in certain programs to also report to USAID IG if they find instances of fraud with respect to USAID programs. Sometimes we work those cases jointly. Sometimes we let their inspectors or investigators work them, and then they report back to us and USAID. So those are very effective in helping us identify what's happening and where we can jointly put our resources together to investigate cases.
Thank you for explaining that. I know you mentioned the Ukraine's agriculture sector. So can you speak to that assessment of the oversight and accountability measures that I know you just talked about it, but with respect to the projects that include joint ventures with private sector entities?
Sure. So in July of 2022, USAID committed $100 million to bolster the agricultural exports and alleviate the global food security crisis. There's 4 separate programs right now that the mission is conducting. The largest one being, I think, that the agro program. And so the implementing partners that USAID is using are ones that they have used in the past, mostly Chemonics, DAI, and the World Council. And so we have relationships and we have longstanding work that we've done with those NGOs as well. They are included in our fraud awareness briefings that I mentioned, that our investigators are going out and identifying and training the staff on the ground for the NGOs on what to look for potential schemes that might be compromising U.S. assistance in agriculture programs happening right now in Ukraine.
Thank you. I wish we have more time, but I think my time's up, so I'll yield back.